Modern global finance operates on abstract, high-speed digital architecture. But before algorithms managed risk, those same financial mechanics were recorded on ink and paper ledgers. The Industrial Revolution required a massive infusion of initial capital. To build mechanized factories, lay thousands of miles of rail, and construct modern cities, someone had to front the money. Central banks were in their infancy, and modern venture capital did not exist. Where did that immense volume of liquid wealth actually originate? A common misconception isolates the transatlantic slave economy to the American South, framing it as a local, strictly agricultural operation cut off from the modernized North. The data tells a different story. Enslavement operated as a complex, globally integrated financial engine. It served as a prototype for modern capitalism. To understand how this functioned, we will examine the system through the lens of economic data and financial mechanics. We can trace the flow of capital from the value extracted from a single human being on a southern plantation, up the supply chain, directly into the banking centers of Wall Street and London. The architecture of the modern global economy cannot be fully understood without recognizing that it was built using the capital and mechanics developed through the financialization of human lives. At the micro level, the system relied on a specific legal framework, chattel slavery. The term chattel legally categorized a human being as movable property. This classification transformed a person into liquid capital that could be traded, inherited, or leveraged for debt. This estate appraisal shows exactly how planters accounted for this property. At the top of the ledger, you see the official financial valuations for one Negro woman named Dinah and one boy named Ben. Right below those names, on the same legal document, the assessor lists 10 head of hogs and a cow and calf. Human lives and agricultural livestock were measured using the same legal standard. The difference is found in the monetary weight. The enslaved individuals are valued at 70 and 110 pounds, while 10 hogs are valued at just 2. That valuation created high on-paper liquidity. Planters used these assessed human valuations to apply for loans. This introduces collateral. Planters used enslaved people to secure agricultural mortgages, in the same way a home buyer uses a house to secure a modern mortgage. The mechanics of default were swift. If the planter failed to make mortgage payments, the bank legally seized the enslaved individuals to cover the debt. Planters used the cash from these mortgages to buy more land and purchase more enslaved people, which immediately increased their borrowing power for even larger loans. This compounding cycle generated a credit bubble across the entire American South, secured by human bodies. Human beings were the highly liquid unit of credit that financed the expansion of the plantation empire. Southern planters were borrowing millions of dollars to sustain this expansion. But where did the banks get that much capital to lend? The financial institutions underwriting these massive agricultural mortgages were heavily concentrated in the American North and in European financial capitals. To manage this volume of debt, they utilized securitization, the process of pooling various types of debt into a single tradable financial asset. Northern banks pioneered this on a massive scale. They bundled hundreds of individual Southern slave mortgages together into a single bond. Wall Street banks then sliced up these human-backed bonds and sold shares to global investors. International wealth became tied to plantation debt. Northern financial institutions profited from the interest, transaction fees, and the constant trading of these human-backed securities. Moving, holding, and exploiting human capital introduced high economic risk. Disease and death made the collateral volatile. To protect the investments of the banks, modern risk mitigation industries were forced to scale. Financial centers developed complex actuarial tables and risk pooling models to provide maritime insurance for slave ships crossing the Middle Passage, ensuring investors were paid even if human cargo was lost. Insurance policies were also taken out on the lives of individual enslaved workers on the plantations to protect the bank's underlying collateral. Northern and European financial centers engineered the modern architectures of risk and credit specifically to extract wealth from this system. This abstract financial maneuvering was dependent on the physical supply chain it financed. Raw cotton was the oil of the 19th century global economy. The scale of raw commodity extraction at southern ports was immense. Thousands of bales of cotton were continuously staged for transport. This volume was necessary to meet the growing demand of international manufacturing centers. Northern shipping fleets maintained near monopolies on the logistics required to transport this raw material across the ocean. The destination for the commodity was the mechanized textile mills of the American North and the British Empire. The profitability of those northern and British factories relied on the suppressed cost of the raw material, made possible by forced labor. The capital generated by these mills was then reinvested. That money funded the Industrial Revolution, paying for railroads, telegraph lines, and urban infrastructure. The technologically advanced economy of the 1850s was largely subsidized by the integrated supply chain of enslavement. When we view the complete macroeconomic model, the interconnected flow of capital becomes clear. Slavery's economic impact included both the direct crop value and the financial infrastructure managing that wealth. Modern capitalist mechanisms, global credit, securitization, and risk management were stress-tested here. Stripped of historical labels, this 19th century architecture mirrors the underlying logic of the modern global market. The legal institution of chattel slavery was abolished, but the immense capital it generated and the financial institutions it built were not dismantled. We cannot comprehend the power dynamics, scale, or structure of modern capitalism without acknowledging its origins. The economic engines of enslavement did not disappear. They provided the structural logic and initial capital that shaped the modern world.